The Federation of Malaya was established in 1957 and became Malaysia in 1963 with the inclusion of Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore, which left in 1965. During the 15th century, the area experienced such a substantial boost in trade that it soon came to the attention of European colonial forces. As the Malacca Sultanate granted Malaya a golden age of trade and prosperity, it opened itself up to the covetous European powers. Keep watching as we take a closer look at how the Malacca Sultanate changed Malaya's prosperity, religion, and fate. From the 9th to the 14th centuries, what is now Malaysia was under the dominion of the Buddhist kingdom of Srivijaya, which originated in Palembang on the island of Sumatra, and at its peak controlled most of what is now known as Indonesia and the Malaya Peninsula. During the 14th century, Srivijaya had already lost influence, and the Majapahit Empire began expanding its borders, further hindering Srivijaya's power. Toward the end of the 14th century, Majapahit forces attacked and conquered the city of Palembang. A Hindu prince named Parameswara fled with a handful of followers. At first, he headed for the island of Temasek, now Singapore, to stay with a relative who ruled there. However, Temasek was a vassal of the Majapahit, and Parameswara was betrayed. So, he overthrew his relative and ruled the island himself for around 4 years. It wasn't long before the Majapahit attacked the island. Parameswara was betrayed again when one of his ministers opened the gates to allow the Majapahit forces in. Parameswara continued his search for a suitable area to establish a new kingdom under his rule. He considered Muar, but continued north until he arrived at a small fishing village at the mouth of the Bertam River, later renamed the Malacca River. According to legend, while resting under a tree, Parameswara saw a mouse deer outwit a dog. He considered this a good omen and decided to establish his kingdom right there, which he did in the early 15th century. The story became such an integral part of the foundation of Malacca that the mouse deer is part of the modern city's coat of arms. Due to its natural harbor, Malacca soon became an important trade port and, before long, commanded the main sea route between India and China. Parameswara also cemented ties with Muslim traders, marrying a Muslim princess of Pasai and adopting the Persian title of Shah. He declared himself Iskandar Shah and brought Islam to Malaya, although it is unclear as to whether he converted himself. Parameswara also pursued diplomatic relations with China, embarking on voyages to visit the emperor of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Di. These ambassadorial missions established Ming protection over Malacca and guaranteed substantial defense against Siam and Majapahit. With suitable protection from invasion, Malacca grew into an international trading hub and dominated trade between China, India, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Malacca developed from a small fishing town into a multicultural trading post, with reports of around 80 different languages being spoken. Although the details of Parameswara's death are unclear, Chinese reports mention that in 1414 his son came to China to inform the emperor of Parameswara's death. The transformation of Malacca into a prosperous trading port had a profound effect on the Malay archipelago. Not only did it increase the prosperity of the region, but it also changed the predominant religion from Buddhism to Islam. Malacca further prospered under the third ruler, known as Raja Tengah or Raden Tengah, before he ascended to the throne. Once he became ruler of Malacca, he took the title of Seri Maharaja, but later embraced Islam and became Muhammad Shah, ruling during the 1400s. Under Muhammad Shah, Malacca grew into a city-state, and he began to expand the Sultanate's territories, prompting the further spread of Islam. During the rule of Muhammad Shah, tensions grew between Malacca and the Siamese kingdom of Ayutthaya, with Malacca managing to navigate these threats diplomatically. Later rulers, particularly Sultan Muzaffar Shah, refused to pay tribute to Ayutthaya, repelled 2 Siamese expeditions, and acquired Selangor, which enabled Malaccan forces to take control of strategic positions along the Sumatra coast across the strait. Malacca was run with an effective government and a well-defined set of laws. At the top of the social hierarchy stood the Sultan, who served as an absolute ruler. Beneath him was the Bendahara, who acted similarly to a prime minister. The Bendahara was an advisor to the Sultan and was usually a noble. Under the Bendahara was the Laksamana, a military official who oversaw the army and was responsible for the state's security. Next came a position akin to the chief of police, the Temenggung, and lastly were the treasurers, the Penggula Bendahari, and those who oversaw trade and ran the ports, known as the Shahbandars. In the mid-15th century, a warrior named Tun Perak was appointed chief minister of the Malacca Sultanate and served as the fifth Bendahara. Tun Perak had been a successful soldier-statesman and was appointed Bendahara after leading the army that successfully repelled the Siamese invasion. He was also instrumental in extending the territorial reign of the Malacca Sultanate. Tun Perak became a kingmaker of sorts and secured the succession of the subsequent three Malaccan rulers, who were all related to him. These rulers pursued an aggressive foreign policy and established the Sultanate as an empire, forming tributaries across the Malay Peninsula and eastern Sumatra. At its height, the Sultanate ruled most of the Malay Peninsula, modern-day Singapore, and a part of eastern Sumatra. It also became a center for Islam and attracted many religious scholars who came to discuss philosophy and religion. Due to the range of merchants that came through the port of Malacca, the city-state became a melting pot of cultures and religions. Although the Sultanate was predominantly Muslim, it practiced religious tolerance and became a center of cultural exchange, fostering learning, literature, and arts. Throughout Malacca's rule, they maintained good relations with Ming China and were the first foreign kingdom to receive a letter of friendship from the Ming Emperor. Malacca was both a tributary state and ally of Ming China. Thanks to China's ongoing protection, as well as its own wealth and military assertion, Malacca was able to repel numerous attacks from rivals. For much of the Sultanate's rule, Malacca's main rivals were Siam to the north and the Majapahit Empire to the south. As Malacca was extending its power, the Majapahit Empire was in decline, and it was eventually brought to an end around the early 16th century due to the spread of Islam and the rise of Islamic states. Although Siam tried multiple times to invade and conquer Malacca, its forces were repelled each time. Malacca's domination of international trade routes between the east and west meant they essentially became the gateway between the Spice Islands and the demanding Eurasian markets. One factor contributing to Malacca's status was the monsoon winds that enabled merchants to travel between Arabia and India in the west and China in the east. The importance of Malacca soon came to the attention of the Europeans. As one Portuguese writer put it, "He who is lord of Malacca has his hand on the throat of Venice." As Europe was well aware of the profitability of the spice trade, it wasn't long before the Portuguese king sent envoys to Malacca to try and establish trade relations. The first European to arrive at Malacca was Admiral Diogo Lopes de Siqueira in 1509. Unfortunately for the Portuguese, their reputation for aggressive expansion preceded them due to their previous conquests, including the Portuguese's capture of Goa, which promoted the Muslim trading community to alert the Malaccan Sultanate that the Portuguese could be a threat. Lopez left the following year after it became apparent that the Sultanate would not be the willing trade partners the Portuguese had hoped they'd be. In 1511, the Portuguese returned. A fleet of ships containing 1,200 men, led by Afonso de Albuquerque, left the newly conquered Goa and headed for the city of Malacca. At first, the Portuguese issued several requests, including permission to build a fortress near the city that would act as a Portuguese trading post. Rightfully suspicious of Portugal's intentions, the Malaccan Sultanate refused all the requests. Seeing outright conflict as unavoidable, the Portuguese attacked Malacca, which fell by late August 1511. Although Malacca was well fortified and supplied, it could not match the firepower of the Portuguese ships. In addition, several internal factors led to the fall of Malacca. In the late 15th century, Mahmud Shah had been pronounced sultan. At this time, Malacca was at the peak of its power, but its important political advisor and the orchestrator of much of the Sultanate's greatness, Tun Perak, was now an old man. Tun Perak's death in 1498 marked a turning point for the Sultanate. Under Mahmud Shah, the Malaccan court became embroiled in intrigue and was rife with favoritism rather than run by strategic administration. The new Bendahara, Tun Matahir, faced allegations of corruption that increased the instability of the court and weakened the Sultanate's administration. Some sources also cite a rivalry between Mahmud Shah and his son, Ahmad Shah, which ended with Mahmud stabbing his son for being unable to reconquer Malacca. After the Portuguese captured Malacca, Albuquerque remained in the city until November, reinforcing the city's defenses against a counterattack, and Mahmud Shah was forced to flee. After the Sultan's attempts to retake Malacca failed, he fled with his forces to Pahang, ultimately establishing a new capital in Bintan. After establishing his new base, the Sultan assembled Malay forces to try and drive out the Portuguese, organizing attacks and blockades against the invaders. Although the raids made life hard for the occupying Portuguese, they also convinced the Portuguese that the deposed Sultan was still a threat. After numerous attempts to suppress the Sultan's forces, the Portuguese destroyed Bintan in 1526. The Portuguese finally controlled one of the most important trade ports on the spice route. However, they soon discovered that location wasn't the only thing that made the Malacca Sultanate successful. The Portuguese had trouble organizing and establishing an effective rule and were hampered by a lack of manpower, funds, and efficient administration. The port was also in competition with others along the route. As they had disrupted Malacca's reputation as a safe and hospitable port, many Asian and Muslim traders now avoided Malacca in favor of other trade stops. This disruption had a negative impact on the Asian trade network, scattering trade over several different ports, which in turn sparked rivalry and warfare in the straits. Despite the reduced importance of Malacca, the European powers still vied for control of the port, with the Dutch clashing with the Portuguese and taking control in 1641. In the 1800s, conflict between the Dutch and the British resulted in the Anglo-Dutch Treaty, which transferred Malacca to the British and established the basis for the current Indonesian-Malaysian boundary. The Malacca Sultanate presided over a golden age on the Malay Peninsula, inspiring religious tolerance and international trade and cooperation. Although it could be argued that the Sultanate would have inevitably declined no matter what, the intervention of the Portuguese disrupted a well-established and prosperous trade route that had successfully connected East and West for over 100 years. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about Malaysia, check out our book, History of Malaysia, a captivating guide to ancient kingdoms, colonial Malacca, modernization, and the post-independence years. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, grab your free mythology bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.